about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So here's a question for you all. If somebody uses marijuana regularly, should they still have access to their firearm? Seems like a simple question, but apparently this is a case going up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is going to decide if people who regularly use marijuana can still own a gun. Now, I know this makes a lot of people kind of nervous because everybody and their mother these days seems to be using marijuana. And the last thing anybody wants is their rights to access, their firearm and to be able to protect their family to be affected. On the other end, nobody wants somebody who is inebriated, drunk, high, having a weapon. So it's going to be an interesting case. So I guess the case is titled United States versus Hamani. And the court is going to hear oral arguments, I believe, early next year. The case is challenging a federal law that bans gun possession for illegal drug users. Now, the law was passed in the 60s, 1968, and it affects all illegal drugs. Well, marijuana is still considered illegal federally. And the law was originally designed because, people who were drunk or, if they, we could take their gun away if it looks like they were not of sound mind, had their full faculties. But what about somebody who uses marijuana regularly? Now, many individuals look at that as, well, I know people that use marijuana regularly. Their body is used to it. They seem to have more tolerance to it. I apologize. I have to fix my lighting there. They don't even feel high. They don't even get high anymore. So they just have marijuana in the system. And then you have other individuals that have said, like for those of us who worked in ERs, et cetera, when you see marijuana psychosis, that's scary. There was a girl that, and we spoke about this case, where in California, she and her boyfriend were smoking a bong, watching movies at home. And then she goes into a psychotic episode and stabs him 108 times and kills him. And so the question is coming up, how do we know who is going to have a psychotic episode? What do we do if marijuana is legal in states but illegal federally? And then who gets their gun taken away and who doesn't? This is not an easy topic, and it's been something we've talked about on the show before. So I want to hear from you. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC. DALI. So I guess there was a decision, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, that established the gun regulations must have a historical tradition of precedent. The appeals court, there was an appeal back in 2022 where I guess there was a case where the court found no historical basis for disarming a sober person based solely on their past substance use. So I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, somebody might have used drugs in the 60s or 70s or whatever. And, again, what you did in your past, as long as it wasn't illegal, criminal, violent, you do need to be able to protect yourself. But what do you do with somebody that has access to something that can manipulate their mind, that is psychedelic, that has THC? And what do you do when our choices and products of marijuana are now much stronger than our grandparents' marijuana in the 60s? And so I'm really mixed on this because what I don't like about laws is people can then twist the law to their own advantage. So somebody could say, sorry, if you're using marijuana for medicinal purposes and marijuana could affect your mentation, no gun. And then somebody could say, well, what if you're also using a beta blocker that can make you sleepy? Well, then if you're sleepy, you should, if you're using an antihistamine, if you're on an antidepressant, if you're on, there could always be this this expansion of the law and manipulation where they say there's a case that these medications could affect your mentation and your mood. So no gun for any of you. And I don't want that. I think we all need to be able to protect our family. This world is getting crazier. It's getting deadlier. I've had home invasions, and thank God I was able to have a shotgun, cock it. I was ready to fire a warning shot, told him to get the blank out. He left. If I didn't have a gun, who knows what he would have done. And I'm standing in front of my kids' rooms, ready to arm them and ready to fight to the death in case that guy was going to come into our house. And luckily I had a weapon. I mean, I could fight. I could, poke his eye out. I could do some Krav Maga, but I needed a gun. And thank God I was able to have one and get him out of our house. And it was like 2 a.m. So a husband was asleep. Dog was asleep. I even said, there's somebody in the house. But I was too busy running to get the gun and to protect my kids because he was in the house. And so, and then I go back to bed. And my husband's like, oh, what happened? There was someone in the house. I took care of it. Okay. The next morning, he's like, what? So on the other end, we got a lot of mental illness out there. And we have a lot of people that are having psychotic episodes and turning violent. And we keep saying people who are mentally ill to the degree where they could choose violence shouldn't have a weapon. Why are we arming somebody who could then go to their workplace where they got fired from and shoot people or kill people? Or go to their ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, and shoot them up. So, the Supreme Court has their work cut out for them. And again, I want to hear from you. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. If somebody uses chronic marijuana, or if they use recreationally, should their gun rights be affected? 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I really support the Second Amendment in terms of, because I've needed to protect myself. I had a family member who was robbed, my grandfather. That was back in the 60s where somebody came up, put a gun to his head to rob the store he was working at. Thank God in those days you would be robbed and people wouldn't shoot. Now people just shoot, because they don't want a witness. And so, it's frustrating to think that you wouldn't be able to, protect yourself. So my guess is they're going to legalize marijuana so that becomes a non-issue. 1-877-DOC-DALI, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I think last week we spoke about younger adults and religion, how they aren't going to religion, and some of them don't know what to choose, which one, how do you know the one you're choosing is the right one? And one of my listeners was listening to that segment and asked me, why don't Jews follow the New Testament? Why don't Christians follow the Old Testament? Now, I am no biblical scholar. I'm sure you guys have come to that conclusion. But it was an interesting question. And I'm sure the scripture tells us, I mean, in the Old Testament, those are the rules, those are the covenants, you have the rules, then the Messiah comes, Jesus comes, whether you believe Jesus was a Messiah or not, and now we have the teachings under Christ and his disciples in the New Testament. And what's interesting is in the New Testament, it is not necessarily an extension of the Old Testament in terms of all the rules. Sometimes there's a substitution. So while in the Old Testament, there was a lot of rules on kashrut and not eating pork and mixing, don't boil a kid in its mother's milk out of respect for the cow. You don't basically, take the mom's milk while eating her child in front of her. Those kinds of things, avoiding pork, because of the trichomoniasis parasite, undercooked shellfish because of cigarette poisoning. And there was a lot of medical reasonings for it in terms of not having sex while a woman's on her period. Well, she's in pain. The blood could transmit bloodborne pathogens. And so also for health reasons, avoiding sex while somebody's on a period. Plus, if sex was supposed to be more procreational rather than recreational, it's rare to get pregnant while you're on your period. It can happen, but a woman's in pain. It protected her from being approached by her spouse to have sex, and so why weren't some of those things? Not to mention, there's so many teachings, by Jesus and the disciples, and Romans and all the books and Psalms and parts to the New Testament. Why haven't Jews taken that on? And so this is, I think, one of the reasons why you have many individuals who are confused. I don't care what religion you are. If you follow the Ten Commandments, you love who you are, you love others, you support your community, you're good to society, you're good to animals, you are understand that all of this isn't happening because you're a superhero. Now, whatever you want to believe is fine, as far as I'm concerned. But it is one of the, I think, confusing factors for individuals. And I've been asked many times by, Christians and Catholics, why didn't Jews follow Jesus? And then I've heard from many Jews ask their Catholic friends, what was it about Jesus that they believed as opposed to some of the other prophets and individuals who said they were the Son of God? And so it's a real, I don't want to say disconnect, but it's a real rift or separation between the two religions when we all came from Hebrews. And even with Islam, our father was all Abraham. You had Ishmael and Isaac, the two sons, and Abraham banished Hagar and Ishmael, and that started the root of the Hebrew Islam war, but and fighting over the centuries and millennia. But we all came from Abraham. We all came from Hebrew lineage, and so we all have a lot of similarities. This is why I love whoever you are, because we all came from very similar origins. It's just where we went after we had new information, we had new guidance, we had conversations with God. We some of us went one way, some of us went another. And so, I can't speak for all Jews, but I've gone back and forth throughout my life going, am I supposed to turn to Jesus or not? And what's the right move? And I've gone back and forth with that. And I can't speak for all Jews, but it's very confusing and daunting when you have an Old Testament, you learn the Old Testament, you're supposed to follow the Old Testament, and then, well, things change. And so when somebody doesn't have that guidance, and they, which is why I always recommend, please talk to clergy, please talk to family members. We have family members in our family who are Catholic, who are non-denominational Christian, who are Jewish, who are atheist, so we have a family with a variety of, I don't think we have LDS in the family yet. But we, so we definitely, we definitely embrace, religion, and we embrace, any teachings from God and from Jesus. We have a very Judeo-Christian, strong, background, but it's daunting for somebody to go, well, wait a second. If God made the Old Testament, does the Old Testament go away? If God made the New Testament, are we still supposed to look at the Old Testament? Or if you do go by the Old Testament, is that wrong? If you're praying to God, and so it was very, very scary in the Jewish religion as it pertained to, you shall, I am thy Lord, their God. There are no other gods before me. And so, and I can't speak for Jews back then, but now you have the Son of God. So did Jews who didn't follow Jesus play it safe and go, you know what? Okay, he might be the Son of God. God said, pray to me. So we're just going to still pray to God, and I think we'll still be safe. I can't say that's what a lot of Jews thought, but I know, I have gone back and forth going, well, wait a second, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? I don't want to be wrong. This is why I get so frustrated with public officials and health advice, because people need to make a decision, as it pertains to vaccine side effects, as it pertains to COVID, what's right and what's wrong. And when you have people mixed on answers, it's very, very confusing. And I think even rabbis and priests might struggle with that, going, well, wait a second, God can have a son. And the mom is Mary. And that absolutely can happen. And so, why don't we believe that? Or are we so scared because God would, anybody who didn't pray to him got in trouble? Are you so scared that it's safer? Look, I pray to God, so I'm still doing what I'm supposed to. And I respect his son, but I'm just going to pray to God and play it safe. I don't know. I'm no, religious scholar, but I do believe that is, because I do know of Jews and Catholics and Christians that waver in their faith, not because they don't believe in God, but they struggle with what is the right way to do this. And it is very confusing to think that God made a covenant with Abraham. You went through all the teachings of the Old Testament, but you don't necessarily now use it or follow it. And so people are going, do I still keep kosher? Do I not? And so now you have a younger generation who, unfortunately, prior to Charlie Kirk's great work, was really starting to diminish enthusiasm for religion. But you have a younger generation going, okay, I'm going to find God. Well, how? Through the Protestant way, through the Lutheran way, through the Catholic way, through LDS, through Judaism? How? And so my opinion is it's all good. I think God loves all of us. That's why we're still here. That's why we are so robustly doing well. That's why we're thriving. Now, but it is daunting. And I appreciate what people are going through when I love that people care. I really do. I mean, I really love that people care. And they're because not only do you have to work on your physical health and your mental health, but you also have to consider, your spiritual health. Now, you could be atheist. I think many people who are atheists do well, and they're still very good people, and they still follow very similar rules and laws that those of us who are religious do. But seeing that people are trying to find their moral compass and their is a good thing. But it's each religion has explanations for that, but I can't explain per se why the Old Testament isn't as relevant, why some people don't take on the New Testament. I can't explain that. And I hope I'll have an answer one day, because I love religion. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So last year we were told that the number of individuals identifying in the LGBTQAI plus community was close to 23% in terms of young adults. And Gen Zers were embracing the LGBTQAI plus identification much more than any of their other counterparts. So questions came in going, how is that different? Is it that we have baby boomers or Gen X's of the same percentage of prevalence not identifying? Is it that there is something turning people more towards LGBTQIA plus community? What's going on here? And so I think a lot of those numbers, that 23%, wasn't that you had individuals that went from being heterosexual to homosexual now all of a sudden. I think a lot of those numbers were those who didn't identify as male or female. And as many of their friends who were a part of that community, when you were close to them and you wanted to support them, many individuals said, well, you know what? I'm non-binary. Why should I call myself a girl? Why should I call myself a boy? I am gender fluid. And those numbers increased drastically. And so people were in support of their friends and family members, and the numbers became higher. Then, in terms of transgender identifying, the true gender dysphoria population is very rare. For somebody to wake up and say, I'm in the wrong body. I should not be having a vagina. I should not be having a penis. This is not my body. I have got to change and go through surgery. And those true gender dysphoric patients are rare. They exist, and I really feel for them. And they need support. They need help. That's got to be awful to wake up and say, I'm in the wrong body. But the number of individuals that have identified as trans and felt that might solve a lot of their issues exploded in numbers exponentially during the Biden years. And on college campuses, it became more and more common. Did they have true gender dysphoria, or did they feel, if I'm going to identify as a man or as a woman, it might help with my mental health, it might help with my depression, anxiety, it might help with my, getting beat up in the girls' bathroom, boys' bathroom, it might help with my sports. And so the question I always had suggested that doctors ask is when you do have a child and a young person saying, I want to be a boy, I want to be a girl, you need to filter down and dissect out what exactly is the cause. Is it that they're getting beat up in the boys' bathroom? Is it that they're not good in sports and they keep being made fun of? Is it that they prefer to be around girls but don't necessarily want to be a woman, a girl? And so you need to kind of find out why. Is it that somebody's assaulting them at home? And if they didn't think they were a girl and they were a boy, that maybe that uncle or aunt would go away. What exactly is going on that's making them want to go to the other side for protection? Are they running away from something or running to something? Well, now we're being told that the numbers of those identified as trans is dropping. Recent data taken from college campuses show a sharp decline in the number of Gen Zers identified as transgender over the past 3 years. According to Fox News, Eric Kaufman, professor of politics at the University of Buckingham, conducted his own analysis of large non-probability-based survey of U.S. undergraduates, which included a question asking them to identify their gender. And anything that wasn't man or woman was considered gender non-conforming. And you saw a huge spike in 2022, 2023, and in females, and going down considerably by 2025 in terms of the share of students not identifying as male or female. So they were offered man as choices: man, woman, non-binary, agender, genderqueer, or gender fluid, unsure, prefer not to say. In the 2025 survey of 68,000 students, only 3.6% of respondents identified as a gender other than male or female. By comparison, the figure was 5.2% in 2024, 6.8% in 2022 and 2023. So the share of trans-identifying students effectively halved in just 2 years. They said the report also found that non-conforming sexual identity has sharply declined. Those identifying as gay or lesbian remain stable. Heterosexuality has risen 10 points since 2023. They say additionally in 2024 and 2025, fewer college first-year students identified as trans or queer compared to seniors, quote unquote, which is opposite of what happened in 2022, 2023. So Dr. Kaufman says it suggests that gender sexual nonconformity will continue to fall. So this annual survey, College Free Speech Rankings, is conducted by the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression, headquartered in Philly. And the aim was to gather students' opinions on freedom of speech, along with demographic information like gender. So he conducted his analysis using 6 years of demographic data from the survey. So this was not a new survey. This was a survey that's been used, that's been for a while. So there's not a new variable in that. It's just individuals now completing the survey, didn't necessarily seem to give similar answers in terms of their gender identity. So what could be going on? Well, there's a few things. One is the momentum and the movement and the feeling you're going to belong starting to fizzle out, where, we're not doing cancel culture that much anymore. So it's okay to be who you are. If you want to be a cis male or a cis female, or a trans female or trans, if you want to be heterosexual, if you want to be homosexual, there's the cancel culture is starting to be subdued. So you're more free to say who you are and not feel like I better just put something down there so I could get a job, so I could get, points, so I don't get alienated as being X, Y, and Z. Even though I really feel bad for what had happened to the LGBTQ AI plus community being sidelined and marginalized all these years. And I love how people feel they could be free about who they are. But, those people who are, honest about who they are should be honest. You don't have to feel like you need to change just to not get canceled. So I think that's one of it. Number two is we're seeing a lot of detransitioners. I just had another patient detransitioning. The transitioning of a gender is so exhausting, so painful, so costly, even traumatizing, And it's not just a one-time procedure. You need lifelong maintenance. It's a huge commitment. And many individuals, it's easier for them to be off the hormones. The hormones are really, people struggle with what the hormones make them feel like. I mean, I remember when I went through trying out different birth control, I couldn't imagine trying to take on hormones to make me a man or to have the semblance of a male. That would be awful. And so sadly, you have a lot of individuals who are, you know what, I know I identified as that. I just can't, it's just too hard. You know, I've known males where they're trying to keep up with the bras and the makeup and the hair. It's a lot. It's exhausting. For those of us women that try to do the hair and the lashes and all that, I mean, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. Give me my husband's t-shirt. I'm just going to relax. No makeup today. Sorry. And it does take a lot of work, which is why I don't think kids should transition. Because how are they able to make a decision that they're going to be able to do that the rest of their life? You are going to have to be on hormones for life. Or you go back to your baseline, which is your male or female gender. So I think there's a lot of reasons, but it is interesting to see that the numbers are going down in terms of people, you know, saying I'm not going to identify as male or female. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. So this is really, really cool. And we've spoken about age-related macular degeneration, which is one of the leading causes of blindness. Well, we're being told by BBC News that there is an eye implant that is helping blind patients able to read again. Wow, wow, wow. Sheila Irvine, a 70-year-old who is registered as blind in England, told BBC that it was out of this world to be able to read and do crosswords again. She says, it's beautiful, wonderful. It gives me such pleasure. Why? Well, because there are microchips that the surgeons can insert. And a surgeon did this in 5 patients at Mooresfield Eye Hospital in London. And the results, he says, astounding. The technology is offering hope for people with an advanced form of dry age-related macular degeneration called geographic atrophy. Barely 250,000 people in the UK and 5 million worldwide suffer from this. It affects older people where the macula, the center part of the retina, loses its acuity, and the eye, the cells start to become more damaged, die off, scarring happens, and it results in blurred or distorted central vision. You also lose color, fine detail, and so you need your retina to be able to relay images through the optic nerve to the brain. So this new procedure involves inserting a very tiny 2 millimeter square photovoltaic microchip. It's like the thickness of human hair. And they surgically put it under your retina. Then the patient puts on glasses with a built-in video camera. The camera sends an infrared beam of video images to the implant at the back of the eye. Then that sends them on to a small pocket processor to be enhanced and made clearer. The images are then sent back to the patient's brain via the implant and optic nerve, giving them some vision again. Now, the patients had to spend months learning how to interpret the images, but Mahi Mukit, consultant ophthalmic surgeon at Moorfield Hospital, led the UK arm of the trial, said this was life-changing and pioneering. This is the first implant that is demonstrated to give patients a meaningful vision that they could use in their daily life, such as reading, writing, and they think it was a major advance. So having an ability to have somebody allow the retina to make better images, send it to it goes to a processor. Images are sent to the eye by infrared beam. The implanted implant sends the images it gets to a processor, and then the image gets enhanced by that process. It's amazing. The research was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. 38 patients with this geographic atrophy in 5 European countries took part in the trial. 32 patients were given the implant. 27 of them could read again using their central vision after a year, because most people with macular degeneration have still peripheral vision, but they lose their central vision. So that's why they're saying they were able to use their central vision again. After a year, this equated to an improvement of 25 letters or 5 lines on an eye chart. Not sure what happened with the other patients, but still 27 out of 32, pretty good. So pretty impressed. Good for Sheila and these other patients. But wow, this is something that is definitely needed, because now that we are outliving our bodies, our eyes are starting to go. Or my mom, very healthy individual in her 80s, until she starts losing her vision to macular degeneration. And now she has the wet kind. She had the dry kind, now went to wet, where there's blood vessels that pop. And unfortunately, I don't think this type of procedure can then help her. But we're getting better with it. But just that's my fear, where everything else, I'll be able to fight cancer, God willing, fight heart disease. But then the body is going to start shutting down. The eyes, the knees. Now, for the knees, okay, I got to tell you, I do not know how my joints are going to last. I put a lot of miles. I've run, I just literally and figuratively put a lot of miles on my joints. Well, researchers are now testing a new way to treat osteoarthritis, which is the wear and tear arthritis of your joints. And they're testing low-dose radiation. The study was published by researchers in Korea and presented at, this is according to Fox News, at the American, South Korea, presented at the American Society for Radiation Oncology annual meeting in September. And they say a single course of radiation can be a safe and effective treatment option. Now, as much as I don't want any more radiation than I've been exposed to, I got to tell you, I don't want to take steroids. I don't want to go through any injections. I don't want to go through that much surgery. I'd like to still be able to, hold on to as much, lifeline to my knees and as possible. Knee osteoarthritis, which many of us get with age, is degenerative. And you start losing your cartilage, you start getting bone on bone, and then you get more arthritis, more bony spurs, you get swelling, stiffness of the knees, and it's frustrating. And so we have to, physical therapy and exercise help. And I got to tell you, Once I'm moving, I feel good, but getting up out of a chair, owie. And yeah, I was limping a lot, and I was grateful I could still do Disneyland, but that's when I really worry when I can't do Disneyland again and walk for, I think we did 36,000 steps, or about 13 to 14 miles that day. I'm grateful, but I got to tell you, the next day I could barely walk. Now, in this trial with radiation, it was a randomized clinical trial. It enrolled 114 patients with moderate to mild knee osteoarthritis. They were assigned a very low dose of radiation or placebo, or a medium dose. The only other pain relief during the study was acetaminophen or Tylenol. The participants went through 6 sessions as researchers assessed, quote, meaningful improvement in at least 2 of the following markers: pain, physical function, and overall assessment of the condition. The patients also completed a questionnaire to report pain, stiffness, function. None of them recorded side effects. None of the 114. After 4 months of treatment, 70% of the low-dose participants met the criteria as of it working, compared to 42% of placebo. Those in the very low-dose group saw 58.3% improvement. So the findings suggest that low-dose radiation did work beyond placebo. Placebo is where you think something, you're like, oh, is it working? Yeah, it's working, and nothing's really happening to you. Or we call them the dummy pills, not because you're dummy, but they're pills that are duds, that are not, with the medication. So we always offer placebo in these trials to see, is it just that somebody thinks they're getting something done? So how would you do placebo with a radiation test? Well, they probably still undergo the same procedure, but rather than anything coming through, it just makes a sound. So they don't know. So the patients don't know if they're actually getting it or not. And so they say the study concluded that the low-dose radiation led to significant reductions in pain and improved function after 4 months. So, this is huge. Now, if you noticed, it wasn't for people like me with moderate to severe osteoarthritis. All right, these are to mild to moderate. So I think somebody like me is already, screwed. But we need to find other ways to deal with inflammation. We need to find other things other than medications and pills. Because the chronic Tylenol isn't safe on the liver and oftentimes doesn't work. The chronic anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen, naproxen, these things, again, not safe to use chronically on the heart, stomach lining, kidneys. So, here I am, middle age. I'm hoping I have another 6 decades, but I can't be taking medications for 50, 60 years. So if you are undergoing osteoarthritis, you want to lose weight, you want to still be active, physical therapy, and sometimes you do need medications or injections. Don't try to radiate yourself. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.